Okay, welcome everybody. We are recording this session on financing higher ed education and cost of attendance. And my name is Carla Garcia, and I am program specialist and academic success counselor in the nursing program, working under the Title III grant. We are recording this presentation. Please keep your microphones muted and your cameras off. And if you want to put your cameras on when you speak, that's fine. We do encourage you to participate by submitting questions and comments via the chat, but we will offer you a time to ask questions at the end. So I'd like to let my co-presenter go ahead and introduce himself.
Awesome. Thank you, Carla. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Todd Slaney. I am an academic success counselor at Pima College as well. I do support our nursing program with academic advising, short-term personal counseling, and other support services, as well as all of our other health-related programs. Really appreciate you asking me to co-present, Carla. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for helping me out, Todd. So here's our agenda for today. First, we're going to talk about cost of attendance and specifically what does it cost to attend Pima Community College's nursing program. And then we will also go over financing higher education, how to pay for the nursing program, how to keep your financial aid if you're receiving federal financial aid, and then what are financial aid suspensions and appeals and how to work through those. So our first thing that we're going to look at here is what is cost of attendance, and I have a video, and let me share that with you. It's really short, so that's good.
What is cost of attendance? Cost of attendance, or COA, is an allowance based on the following expenses students may incur: tuition, room and board, fees, books, travel, miscellaneous costs, loan fees. This figure is what the Financial Aid Office uses to process your aid eligibility and award package. Your financial aid cannot exceed your COA.
Okay, so that was cost of attendance. Like they state, it's all of the different pieces that go into going to college. So it's not just your tuition, your fees, your books, but also all of the other expenses that can be incurred while you're going through college. And that's what they use to figure out how much money you might need in order to be a college student. And so, but when you think about specifically how much is it going to cost to attend the nursing program, there are the published costs and the unpublished costs, right? Costs that you kind of have to figure out on your own. And the published costs are those that have been identified by the college and the nursing program to decide, what we're going to charge for the different pieces. So for the nursing program at Pima, for the Associate of Applied Science and Nursing, it's about $14,154.25 if you look into including the tuition, the fees, the books, the supplies, taking the NCLEX, your RN licensing fee, other costs like your toxicology screening, your background check, the HESI, if you took it, the test prep course, the immunizations, physical CPR. So like all of those little pieces that goes into that big cost of that $14,000, right? And then if you're in the LPN to RN transition program, it's a little bit less because you're taking less classes because you've already done the LPN. So then that's $11,345.25. But then the CEP, if that's our concurrent enrollment program, there's additional costs that go to that from either ASU, NAU, or University of Phoenix, or I didn't put GCU in here, but that's an option too if you're doing the MSN program. So those are additional costs. And then there's the unpublished costs, like the housing, the food, the transportation, the loan fees, and miscellaneous. So a lot of times students don't think of everything, but at the same time, a lot of students look at the big number and think it's, so big that it's too much and it's too hard to get that covered to be able to pay it, because it's not something that you have in your own income to be able to pay for. But we're here to talk about, also how you can personalize it for yourself, because just because it says that it costs, $14,154, that doesn't mean that that's exactly how much it's going to cost for you. And each person's circumstances are different. So that's why it's important for you to make a plan. And there are lots of different people that can help you figure out the different pieces. So your program advisor, which will show you at the end who the different program advisors are. It's split up by alpha, and like I work with students whose last names begin with A through G, and Todd works with students whose last names begin with S through Z. So, and then there's two others that are in between the alphabet there. But your program advisor can help you make an academic plan, so you know exactly what classes you have to take each semester in order to complete your degree. And then the bursar's office is the person, or the office that answers your questions about your actual bill. So if you ever have a question about your bill, then that's who you would contact. And then your financial aid office is where you find out what's covered by financial aid, what's not covered by financial aid, and why, and what other resources might be out there. Then your academic success counselor, which both Todd and I also happen to be academic success counselors besides working as in the advising area. If you're having a hard time putting it all together and understanding your options and how everything works and what processes you have to go to, even helping you create a budget, those are kinds of things that we can help with as counselors, okay? And so you will also get a copy of this presentation. So all of these links will work for you, where you could click on Program Advisor and you can go to the page that helps you get to advising. You can click on Bursar and that will help you get to the bursar's office, okay? So all of the links are live, and I'll make sure, in case anything has changed since I created it, that they're all good, but I'll send you a copy of this presentation so that you can have access to all of that information. So as far as different ways to pay for your expenses while attending Pima Community College, there are lots of resources out there. And so of course, a lot of people do pay their way through college, especially at community college level. The university, it's much harder, but at the community college, it's a lot more doable. And so there are people who do pay their way through community college, but also, so that's considered self-pay, whether you're paying it yourself, your parents are paying it, you have other people that are helping you pay for it, but you're physically giving the money or electronically giving the money to the college rather than having another organization pay it for you. There's also federal student aid. There's also scholarships, other grants and financial aid programs, and then private loans. So we're going to go through all of these different types. But before we do that, and I see that Jeanette is here, even though we got through our first piece a little bit early. And Jeanette is from JobPath. So she's going to talk to us about JobPath, which is a type of another, sorry, Todd.
No, I just wanted to ask if you have your presentation running, because I'm not seeing that. Is
Oh,
anyone
you
else
can't. Oh,
seeing
I
that?
see. I'm sorry. You know what happened when I got out of the video? I didn't click the right thing. Thank you for letting me know.
No worries. There we go. I can see that.
That's why we need a team, right? So here's what I was talking about with the live links here for the program advisor, bursar, financial aid. So you will be able, when you get this, you'll be able to click on those links and get to the people that can help you with these different pieces. And so I'm going to go ahead and let Jeanette talk about Job Path and that opportunity, so you can see if this is something that you can apply for. Jeanette, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Carla. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. My name is Jeanette Roth, and I work at Job Path, and we are a nonprofit here in Tucson. So you might remember Kyle and I, we go to the SNAP orientations most of the time. We were just at one back in January, and we're here, I'm here today to just remind students that it's not too late to enroll with us. We don't just enroll for semesters, but all semesters. So just to refresh your memory about what we do, so primarily students come to Job Path because they're stressed out. They're trying to be full-time students, and they're trying to pay their bills, and it's pretty difficult. Sometimes students may have been working full-time or part-time before school started, and they've had to reduce their hours or even have to leave their job in order to focus on school. So Job Path can provide funds to students. We can't help with everything, but we can help reduce some of that financial stress. Some of the things that we can help with are bills, utility bills, child care expenses, rent. We can even help with your car repairs. Cars, automobile transportation is very important while you're in school, because you need to get to campus. You also need to go to your clinicals. And so we are, we're here to help you keep your car in good shape. And we also help with gas cards. Every month we give students that are enrolled with us gas cards to help with their gas expenses, because, gas is just going up right now. I don't know why, but it's very expensive. So those are we can also help with program costs too, such as tuition, books, and those things that you might have needed to spend on before you started school, like your CPR, etc. Also, depending on your situation, we can help connect you with other resources and grants and scholarships. And lastly, just like you are probably, students are in their clinicals groups, we provide the opportunity for you to meet other students that are in your cohort, but who are enrolled with Job Path. And how we do this is we meet once a month virtually. It's just a good way for students to just get to know each other. Sometimes students will talk about study tips, sometimes they just want to vent. And sometimes I will just talk about things that are going on at Job Path. Before the pandemic, we met with students on campus twice a month, and hopefully we will be able to get back to that again. But it's just a really good way to stay connected. So if you think you might be interested, please go to our website. It's on the slide, jobpath.net. And that's where you will find the eligibility requirements. And there's also an interest form there. So it's pretty easy to fill out. You just click send, and then Sarah will get back to you to let you know if you are eligible to proceed with orientation. And then she'll send you a link to go to a Job Path orientation. So I think that's about it. But I wish everyone much success this semester, and thank you, Carla, for inviting me today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jeanette. That's such a great resource. I didn't realize there was all of those other, things that a lot of times we don't think that we might need help with, that you can help with. So
yes,
that's great. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay, so now we're going to talk about self-pay, which a lot of people do pay for college themselves or have their parents or other people help them. And so I do want to go over a little bit, of course, how this works in case anybody needs this information. Your payments are due each semester. It's not a big lump sum at the beginning of your program or at the end of the program. So that's one of the things that does make it more manageable. And you can also set up a payment plan. If this is something that you're deciding to do or you have to do, then it can be manageable. And that's where we can help you figure some of these things out. So if you need to figure out where to find that through the website, you would go to My Pima, and then you go to the Students tab, Register or Pay, and My Account, and that's how you find your bill, how you can pay, and how you can request a payment plan. And that's for tuition and fees, because those are the only real costs that the school is actually going to bill you for, is for your tuition and fees. The books kind of come from the school, but it's more from the bookstore than from the school, so it's not going to come from the same place. And normally you order and pay for your books through the bookstore, or you buy or rent them online through another bookstore. So you don't have to go through the school for your books, but you can. And then just something to think about. I know you've probably all made your decisions about whether you have digital or whether you have a print copy, but you can choose to get the print copies later on. There is a deadline for when you can return the books. I know for this semester the digital version that has already passed this semester. It was like February 5th or something like that. But some people are also deciding to get print copies of their books, and you can get a discounted rate on that. And if that's something that you're interested in, let me know. I can get you the information. Then you also have to think about your supplies, and then your housing, transportation, food, and miscellaneous. And so if you're paying for all of that yourself, or like your parents are helping out with that, or your spouse or another person, then those are things that you can, if the more organized and the more you plan, then the easier it will be for you. There's also a link at the bottom of the slide that can get you to some information from Pima on how all of that works. So next we're going to talk about federal student aid. And so this is the money that is funded by the U.S. Department of Education. A lot of people call it FAFSA. The FAFSA is the actual application that you fill out to qualify for federal student aid. So it's not the actual money that is used to pay for college. It's the application is called the FAFSA, stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. But the money comes from federal student aid within the U.S. Department of Education. And this is money that can help pay for higher education expenses for college, career school, or graduate school based on need. Okay, so you can use this money for tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, and miscellaneous costs. So it's not just your tuition and fees or your books, but it's anything that has to do with your expenses while you're in college that this money can be used for. And so you do have to fill out an application every year in order to qualify for federal student aid. And like I said, that's the FAFSA. And we'll talk about later on how to apply for federal student aid with the FAFSA. But let's go over first the different types of federal student aid that are available. And there are grants, work study jobs, and loans. And so these are the three types of federal student aid. Grants is money that you do not have to pay back unless, for example, you withdraw from school and you owe a refund, or you receive a certain type of grant, such as the TEACH grant, which, you know, usually the nursing students don't have TEACH grants because these are for people who want to be teachers. But this is an example of when you would have to pay it back, as if you get one of these special types of grants and then you don't complete your service obligation, then you would it turns into a loan and then you have to pay it back. And then so this grant money is based on your own financial need. If you're under 24, considered a dependent on your parents, then of course that information gets taken into consideration. And then there's also the work study jobs, which allows you to actually earn money to pay for school by working part-time. And then there are student loans that you can borrow money and then you have to pay back to the federal government with interest. So I'm going to hand it over to Todd, and he's going to start with the grants.
Excellent. And I'll actually just address a question that we just got in the chat.
Okay.
We'll have the time afterwards for question and answer, guys. But if you have like a burning question and you throw it in the chat, we might be able to get to it during the presentation. Jessica is asking, if she has financial aid, does she need to set up a payment plan each semester? And so, Jessica, the quick answer to that is no. You would not need to do a payment plan if your financial aid is in process, meaning you have every check mark with a green check mark in your financial aid tab on your My Pima. If you're somewhere in the process of like completing verification, etc., when your tuition is due, then yes, you would do a payment plan. I hope that helps answer your question. I can get into more detail later if you would like. Cool. All right. So, oh, thanks, Jessica. Yeah, we can talk later if we need to. I get to jump into, you know, all the types of federal aid in a little bit more detail for all of you. Really interesting that I'll just start with this, really interesting that we're doing this presentation for current nursing students. Although, what I tend to find is that when I'm working with my nursing students, more often than not, when they begin the nursing program, it might be the first time that they're looking at using federal financial aid because their costs have gone up significantly, right? So, so I really like that Carla's put together this presentation. I know some of this is a refresher for those of you who've used financial aid, but this may help some of you who are just starting to use financial aid. So let's talk about grants real quick. Obviously, we have the federal Pell Grant, okay? That is what you apply for through the FAFSA. Also, there is a supplemental equal opportunity grant called the FSEOG. Okay, that goes to students with the greatest financial need. And we'll actually show you this in a sec. It's all about when you apply for financial aid, if you will qualify for that. We also have special grants for Iraq and Afghanistan service grants for students who had a parent who may have died in Iraq or Afghanistan. So we like to point that out as well. Next slide, Carla, thanks. So with the federal Pell Grant, the amounts do change yearly, and typically those amounts will go up due to inflation, okay? So I have never seen those amounts go down. They typically go up by $100 or a couple $100. The maximum Pell Grant, depending on your eligibility, is $6,345 for this aid year. That may go up just a little bit for next aid year. The amount really depends on your expected family contribution. That is a number that you get after completing your FAFSA. It really is based on your cost of attendance at the school that you go to. So Pima College's cost of attendance is different than that at the U of A, as an example. Okay, and then your Pell Grant is actually looked at based upon your full-time status or part-time status. So that 6345 is for a full-time student, and what that means is 12 or more credit hours. There's this misnomer out there that if you're not a full-time student, you're not going to get Pell Grant, and that actually is incorrect. Any student who is enrolled in 6 or more credit hours and is eligible for Pell would simply have their Pell annualized. What am I trying to say, Carla?
Like they reduce it based on your less credits that you're taking.
The number of credits that you have. So, and then, so that really talks about the federal Pell Grant. This money does not need to be repaid, but is based on financial need. Let's get into the supplemental grant. The last bullet here says first come, first serve. So you're going to hear us mention this several times throughout the presentation. The earlier you apply for financial aid, the better chance you have of receiving this supplemental grant. So the financial aid application is available October 1st, okay? So you can already have filled out the FAFSA for the 2021-2022 aid year, okay? There is sort of a, a deadline that you should try to hit, which is at least filling that out by February 1st, okay? And you can qualify from $100 up to $4,000 per year, depending on that financial aid need, the financial need and the number of credits that you're enrolled in. So supplemental grants are helpful. And then the Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant, you don't have to do anything but correctly answer a question on the FAFSA, and you would automatically be qualified if you had a parent who died in either Iraq or Afghanistan after 9/11/2001. Let's talk about federal work study. Federal work study is a great way, and I know you all are very, very busy with your coursework and your clinicals, but if you have some additional time, you could get a part-time job on campus doing what we call federal work study. I've had students working in federal work study in the scholarship and financial aid office, in one of our science laboratories, in the library, for example, or in the bookstore. Lots and lots of work across campus for federal work study. You do have to apply for these jobs, okay? So you would be able to find the application and open positions for federal work study on your financial aid tab in your My Pima, okay? You do have to have a financial need to be able to qualify for federal work study, and you really want to check the box on your FAFSA that says I'm interested in federal work study. That helps move things along a little bit quicker. I don't know that we've had a whole lot of federal work study jobs during the pandemic, but I'm assuming that, and crossing fingers, that we will be back to campus for fall of 2021. So if you're interested in federal work study, be looking for those opportunities and to apply to federal work study probably by the end of the spring semester, okay? So really great opportunity to make some money. And that, oh yeah, let's move on because I think I'm covering some of this. So yes, you do have to apply for those positions. The school pays you directly, like with a paycheck, and those funds do not count against your application for federal aid for the following year, which is really nice.
And I just wanted to say, I know that there hasn't been a lot of work study jobs, during the pandemic, but things come out every once in a while. So pay attention to any emails that you get from the college, because different departments are finding ways to incorporate student workers into the work that they do virtually. So.
Right. All right, let's get into federal student loans. This is money that you borrow and you must pay back with interest, okay? There are three types of loans that you can qualify for. The first is direct subsidized loans, and really depends on your dependency status and your year in school. So are you a freshman or a sophomore? Okay. Unsubsidized, these loans also depend on your dependency status, and I'll show you a chart in just a moment which explains how much you could qualify for. So it depends on your dependency status and also your year in school. The thing to remember about the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized is the interest will accrue on unsubsidized loans quarterly while you're in school and while you're in repayment, where subsidized loans will only accrue when you're in repayment. The interest will only accrue while you're in repayment. So while you're in school, the interest is subsidized. There are also direct plus loans. So if for some reason what you qualified for is not meeting your full cost of attendance, you could go to a qualifying parent if you were a dependent, and ask them to apply for what's called a parent plus loan. So this tells you a little bit about how the government does not charge interest while you're in school for subsidized loans. There was like a 6 or 7 month period where no interest was being charged because of the pandemic.
It's still going.
What's that?
It's still going. Yeah, until September so far.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yes.
So that says September 30th, 2020. So you're saying it goes to 2021?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I still have my 0% interest on my student loans. So I'm grateful for that. Helps my credit score.
That's pretty neat. The other thing that I didn't mention, which this slide shows all of you, is that subsidized loans really depend on your financial need. Okay, so if you do not have financial need, you may not qualify for a subsidized loan. The unsubsidized loans can be awarded to anyone not dependent on financial need. So if you're a dependent student and you and your family make a more than a livable wage, right? You can always qualify for those unsubsidized loans. The only thing that I would interject here is that be very careful taking loans out. Only borrow what you need. I know it always seems like a good thing to, get additional money to help you pay for, living expenses, etc. And sometimes folks might need that. But if I were to impart any advice on you today, be very careful about those loans that you take out. Like you just heard, Carla is still paying for her student loans, okay? So if you only borrow what you need and don't take out the maximum amount that you could qualify for, that might mean the difference of you starting your new job and being able to afford a first home, or paying your student loans and not being able to do that. So just take that advice from an old guy.
Yes, good advice.
All right. Sweet. Let's get into the chart here, which sort of shows you the maximum amounts for a dependent student and an independent student. So you can see the difference in subsidized disbursements if you're a freshman or a sophomore. So there's a difference of $1,000. That is actually the same for dependent students or independent students. Where the limits can increase is if you are an independent student, and there's many ways to qualify as an independent student, but the easiest one that I will mention here is if you are 24 years of age by December 31st of your aid year, you will qualify qualify as an independent student. Anyone obviously older than that qualifies as an independent student, and there are several other ways you could be seen as an independent student. If you are younger than that, we can talk about that later. You're going to see the full loan limits per year. So a sophomore, let's look at the far right of this column, a sophomore who is an independent student can qualify per year subsidized and unsubsidized loans for $10,500. Let's think about this for just a moment. If you qualify for federal Pell Grant, okay, so that's essentially if you qualified for the full amount, say $6,500, and you were offered $10,500 as a sophomore student, as an independent student, that's, you know, $17,000 per year. I think when we look at the tuition for nursing, we're right around, Carla, $5,000 or so per year.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to what I was saying before, really only borrow what you need so you don't end up having, you know, a pretty large bill after you graduate. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. And then this gets into Parent Plus loans just a little bit. It can be an adoptive parent or a biological parent who can help apply for this and help you out. They will be required to repay those loans. This is not like a loan for you. This is a loan that they would then have to repay. So be very careful about these, only if necessary. So yeah, federal Parent Plus loans, our financial aid folks are willing to work with you and talk with you more about these things should you need them. All right, and then the loan process. This just really talks about how a student who's brand new to the loan process and what they might expect from that process. So you do have to accept or deny your federal loans, right? You can reduce the amount, like I was talking about earlier. If you're a first-time borrower, they're going to have you do what we call entrance counseling, and that's going to talk to you about all of your rights and responsibilities as a borrower. You would then be required to sign a master promissory note. That master promissory note is typically to the bank that you're actually borrowing this money from, okay? And we always tell students to keep a copy of that for their records should they need to go back and review that information. And as soon as you've done those things, all done through your MyPima account, right, the school will begin to disperse your funds. And I think Carla's going to talk to us a little bit more about how that works in just a moment. Talks a little bit more about that entrance counseling. You do complete it on studentaid.gov. However, through your MyPima financial aid tab, our financial aid folks direct you to this as one of the action items that you need to take.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about how you actually apply for federal student aid for the grants, the work study, and the loans. And that is completing the FAFSA. So if you haven't completed the FAFSA yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. And you would go to fafsa.gov. And then the application period, it's open from October 1st to you know, the like say this past October 1st it opened, right? And it will be open until June 30th of 2020. Is it 2021 that it goes? I'm thinking, because the one that actually I think I put those dates wrong because okay, so this October 1st that opened in 2020 is for the 21-22 aid year. So technically for that 21-22 aid year, you could still apply in 2022 up to June 30th of 2022. Okay, so like this June 30th of 21 of this year, it's the expiration for this school year's FAFSA. Okay, so if you haven't even applied for FAFSA for this school year, you could still apply. The amount that you would get compared to what you could possibly qualify for if you had applied in October of 2019 is different, but it's still possible to get some money. And if you qualify for some money that you didn't apply for before, you would basically be getting reimbursed for whatever you have already put into your education at Pima. Or if you still owe something, then it would pay for that. Okay, so I apologize for that mix up, but it is a little bit, tricky when we're trying to explain and figure things out, because it's a lot of different dates and details. But yeah, technically this should say June 30th of 22, because that is the aid year. That's the application period for the 21-22 school year. If you meet the priority deadline of February 1st each year for Pima, that gets you eligible for the most amount of money. But like I said, you can you can apply after that February 1st priority deadline, okay, and still get something. And then if you decide to transfer to a university, then they're probably going to have their own priority deadline. So that's something that you need to look into. If that's something, if you're planning to transfer for next year or the year after, then you want to know what their priority deadline is so that you can qualify for the most money for that university. Okay. And the 3 state universities in Arizona all have a different priority deadline, and they use this in like November, and then ASU is in January, and U of A is, I think, March 1st. Okay, so nobody's the same. Everybody's all over the place. Okay, so the 6 things that you need to know in that you'll need to have available for you to fill out the FAFSA when you go to FAFSA.gov is your username and password. It's called the FSA ID. So you can create that ahead of time before you actually go in to fill out the FAFSA. And it's your username and password to get into everything that has to do with federal student aid. So even after you have finished going to school, if you do have student loans that you're paying on and you need to get into the federal student aid website to do something with your student loans, then you will still use that same FSA ID. If you have kids and they go to college and you have to sign the FAFSA, you will use your FSA ID from when you were in college, okay? So it's connected to your social security number, so you will always have that same FSA ID. So keep it, know what it is and have it stored somewhere, because it will make things a little bit more difficult if you have to use it later on and you don't know what it is or how to find it. There is ways to figure it out if you lose the information, but it's harder, okay? And so you also will need your social security number. You will need your 2019 tax records. So they use prior year. So we just did our 2020 income tax return. So because the FAFSA opens in October, people haven't done their 2020 income tax return. So you have to use your 2019 income tax return, okay? And then records of your untaxed income. If for some reason you do have income that doesn't get taxed, then you do need to have that information, like Social Security income, some types of retirement income, that kind of stuff. Records of your assets. So if you have anything, any type, like if you have a business or you have, it'll talk about farms in the FAFSA. Most of us don't, have experience with that, but that is something there. Then also, like if you own a lot of property, that property that's not a house that you live in, then that kind of a thing is considered an asset. And then you'll need the list of schools that you're interested in attending. So technically, especially for high school seniors and then community college students might be applying to several different universities or colleges that they want to transfer to, then you can list up to 10 different colleges or universities on the FAFSA to send your information to, so you can get different award packages from each college and find out, you know, what they're going to offer you based on your FAFSA. So you'll need to have all of that information with you when you apply. And if you are a dependent student, then you'll also need your parents' social security number, your parents' income tax information, and their untaxed income and their assets, okay? And your parents will have to have, at least one of your parents will have to have an FSA ID. And if that's something, also sometimes there are parents who don't have a social security number, then there are other ways to, if you still qualify for federal student aid, even though your parents don't have a social security number, then there are ways to still apply, because if you qualify, you should still apply. So after you submit your FAFSA, I'm not going to go into the whole FAFSA. That's another presentation. Okay, so if you have questions about that, we'll definitely be willing to help you answer those questions, or, you know, get in contact with financial aid office, because, you know, disclaimer, we didn't say it at the beginning, but we are not financial aid people, right? We are counselors. We do program advising also, but because we have to work with students who have these types of questions, then we have the experience, and we can look up this information for you also, but we're not any of the decision makers when it comes to financial aid. So if you do need like direct questions answered about your financial aid, we'll always refer you over to financial aid to get those questions, those specific questions answered. But when it comes to submitting your FAFSA, there's a certain, you know, there's a certain process that you have to go through, that your application has to go through in order for it to be considered by the college, so that you can get the money to help you pay for college, okay? And so the federal student aid will process your FAFSA within 3 to 5 business days, and then you'll receive an email from them. So it's not, you know, it might not say FAFSA. It'll probably say something like student aid, federal student aid, you know, or your FAFSA's been processed. They've kind of changed it, you know, over the years. But you'll get an email from them within 3 to 5 business days. Always be checking your spam, you know, your junk mail also, just in case it goes there. And then Pima will receive the information from FAFSA about 2 weeks after you complete the application. One thing is that you need to make sure that, you know, all of your accounts are active, which, since you're already in the nursing program, you're already, you know, taking these courses, you don't have to worry about that. Usually happens with students who like take a break and they're gone for a certain number of semesters, then their account gets deactivated, or if for a new to college student who hasn't activated their account. But in order for that FAFSA to match your records at Pima, your My Pima account has to be active. So if you do ever become deactivated, you decide to take a break and you're gone for 3 semesters in a row, then your account gets deactivated. In order to reactivate your account, you would have to apply for admission again. Then there are some follow-up requirements that will be listed in your My Pima account under the financial aid tab, and those start to show up in mid-February. So if you did your FAFSA in October, November, December, and then you should start seeing those, if you haven't already seen those pop up in your My Pima account under the financial aid tab. You will have to complete the requirements by April 4th for next fall, by October 1st of this year for next spring, okay? So make sure that you get everything completed by April 4th for next fall so that your aid doesn't get delayed. And that's where sometimes people end up having to create a payment plan because they didn't complete everything on time, and then their aid from the federal government is delayed because the college didn't get everything that they required from the student. And so eventually you get your money, but you might have to do that payment plan and make some payments before that money actually goes through if you didn't do everything on time, okay? And then if you are going to take out a student loan, those offers don't start until July. So right now, everybody's focused on what can you get when it comes to like the Pell Grant, okay? And how to get that going and get that processed so that money can be in your account in August before school starts. But if you are thinking about doing a student loan, you're not going to work on that until July, okay? So don't worry about the loans right now, but do the FAFSA now to qualify for the loans, but you're not going to actually fill out any of the loan papers until July. So this is an example of what it looks like in your MyPima account under the financial aid tab with all of the requirements that need to be completed. And so it has a list of different things that need to be completed. If it has a red X next to it, that means that you have not completed it yet and you still need to complete it. If it has a green check mark, then you have already completed it. Okay, and so there are different categories, and some of them are required actions, some of them are optional things that you need to do, or that you could do if you're trying to get certain things done with your financial aid. There's also student initiated items that can be done, and then there's informational items where it's just information to give you about financial aid, and it's good for you to read it, but technically you're not required to read it, okay? And so just go through that and make sure you complete all of the steps that have a red X so that you can turn them into a green check mark. And sometimes when you complete the step, it doesn't automatically change. It might take a few days for it to get the fact that you completed the process for it to get put into your MyPima, okay? And sometimes it is automatic and then you just have to refresh the page when you go back to it, and then it'll show up as a green check mark instead of a red X. But if you are ever having a problem, then you do need to contact financial aid so that you can make sure that they did receive the information. If weeks have gone by and it still hasn't updated, then you might want to, check on that, okay? There's another piece that sometimes people have to go through that's called verification. And not everybody has to go through verification. It's a process that the federal government requires for every college and university to do for a certain number of students, and it's random, okay? There have been glitches in the past where it's like choosing 70% of the people who filled out FAFSA to do verification, and if you get selected, even though it was a glitch and there were more students that were selected than needed to be, you still have to complete the verification, okay? So, but generally it's less than that. It's more like 30% of students who have to complete verification, right? But if you are selected to complete verification, then you have to follow those steps, and it will be on your MyPima financial aid list, checklist for you to get done, okay? And if you're parents, if you're a dependent student, then they will have to do the verification as well, and they'll have to have their account, and you'll submit your information and they'll submit their information. Of course, you can work together on it to help each other figure out what you need to do and submit everything, but each person has to have their own login and account in order to submit that information separately, okay? And then the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships notifies you through your email and through your MyPima account. So if you receive any emails from financial aid, they're going to use your Pima Community College email. They're not going to use your Gmail. Okay, so make sure you're checking that Pima email and you're checking the checklist under financial aid in MyPima often so that you don't miss anything. Okay, and you get everything done on time. So that was federal financial aid. Okay, so that was a lot of stuff about federal financial aid, but that's not the only way to pay for college. And the regular grants and work study and loans are not the only thing that comes from the federal government to help you pay for college. Okay, so there's also aid for military families. And this is a special aid program or additional aid eligibility for serving in the military or for being a spouse or a child of a veteran, okay? And if you think you might qualify for something like this, then, you know, speak to the financial aid office and they can help you with that. There's also tax benefits. So if you're paying your tuition, you can put that on your income tax return and get some type of what is it called, Todd, when you put it on your income tax return? It's like a credit. I don't remember if it's a credit, right?
Yeah, I believe it's a credit. Yeah,
okay.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so it's a credit. So it goes on a different part than if you're using it as a it's like going to, my brain is not thinking right now about income taxes, but there's another piece. It's like on the first page, not on the second page. Okay, that's how I kind of think of it. But of course, we don't use the papers anymore. So, but yeah, so you can put that on your income tax return. If you are paying your tuition and fees and everything like that, you know, you can have a tax credit to reduce your adjusted gross income, and that can help you with the amount of taxes that you actually would have to pay to the federal government. There's also education awards for community service with AmeriCorps, and I'll talk a little bit about AmeriCorps in a little bit. And then there's education and training vouchers for current and former foster care youth. So if you were in foster care, then there's money that can help you pay for that for college. And then scholarships and loan repayment programs through the Department of Health and Human Services, Indian Health Service, National Institutes of Health, and the National Health Service Corps. So those are very specific, like you have to have specific types of majors and career goals and everything. So really you need to look at all of the different possibilities to see if there's something else out there that can help you pay for school. And I have the link there at the bottom of the slide. So if you want to look into these resources, you can use that link when you receive the copy of the slides. If you need help, I'm definitely willing to help you go through all of these different pieces to help you find the information that you need in order to see if you qualify. And so that's one of the important reasons why we want to do this kind of a presentation, is because you know, there's so much out there, and not everybody is using all of their resources. And you don't have to pay everything out of pocket if you have all of these different resources to help you pay for college. So Todd, you want to talk about scholarships?
I would love to talk about scholarships. So if you're thinking before, well, gosh, what if I need all of those loans? My argument would be apply for more scholarships. The hard part about scholarships is that it's going to take some effort on your part, right? The really neat thing, though, is that they are gifts. They don't have to be repaid. They're offered by your school, perhaps your employer, or if you're a dependent, maybe the organization that your family member works at. There are individuals, private companies, nonprofits. I mean, the list goes on. So these are offered all over the place. Couple types of scholarships, right? Merit-based, so that's going to be based on your academic merit. You might have to send in a transcript and show your 3.5 GPA or something like that. And then they also have those need-based scholarships, and they might actually require you to share information from your FAFSA. So keep that in mind. Let's look at the different types, Carla. So at Pima, we have what we call institutional scholarships. We also have foundation scholarships. So the Pima Foundation really works to help students, and they actually get these monies from private donors who send in money, for tax benefit, but also to help students. So think of our Pima Foundation as a really great resource. Some students, if they are part of a qualifying tribe, they might receive a tribal award, and those things are quite large, actually, for most of the tribes. And then there's all these private and external foundation scholarships that are out there, and those are the ones that you've really got to search for. We will show you a couple things in just a minute, but there are hundreds of websites out there where you can search on your own for scholarships, but Pima College has actually put together some wonderful resources. So we'll show you those in a minute. Next slide, Carla. The way that scholarships are classified are really one of two ways: refundable directly to the student, or non-refundable, meaning they only work for tuition and fees only. They will not go directly to your bank account so that you pay your fees. So every scholarship application will let you know whether it is refundable or non-refundable. Okay, so keep that in mind. Let's go on to the next slide, which is Scholarship Universe. And this is relatively new within the last 8 months or so at Pima College. Universities like the University of Arizona have utilized Scholarship Universe for many, many years, okay? Scholarship Universe, this link is pretty awesome. You can access this right on our website. You do have to be logged into your My Pima account. And so think of this as like a one-stop shop, right? You go in and add your biographical information. The more questions that you answer actually drives you to additional scholarship applications. Carla, do we have time to click on that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's check this out. Let me show you how cool this is, guys.
Oh, I'm not logged in.
That totally proved our point. That's awesome. So Scholarship Universe takes you immediately to your dashboard. Mine looked a little bit different yesterday. So what happens is they're gonna tell you. I think mine said that there are something like, I don't know, 7,000 scholarships out there currently. Okay.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm all clicking everywhere.
For Carla, that's okay. So
because I'm on the. I think I'm on the employee profile.
Sorry?
That's why. I was on the employee profile, so it wasn't showing up as a student.
Of your profile.
Yeah.
So what this does is allows you to put your information in one place, and then it will match you to qualifying scholarships. Okay. So Carla went in here and filled this out, and she's got 5 matching scholarships right now. It allows you to apply for these scholarships, view them, read them, of course, and apply for them directly on this site. So it makes it really easy, so you're not going out to all of these external websites. I highly suggest you do this because free money is where it's at, guys. It does take a little bit of energy, etc., but do get yourself on Scholarship Universe as soon as you can. Okay. So much easier than paying back loans, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And so this kind of talks to you about how your records are used, your degree, your major. So like if you put down nursing as your major, you're going to be qualified for scholarships that match for nursing students. Okay. If when you put in your GPA, it's going to get you to those merit-based scholarships based on your GPA currently, et cetera. The scholarship cycle is really what I want you to pay attention to. Think of it this way. There are way more scholarships to apply to in the spring semester for the awarding cycle of the fall. Okay, there are way less during the fall that begin in the spring. So right now, the applications opened on Scholarship Universe like December 6th, and really a lot of those start to close around April 1st, okay? It's not all of them close April 1st, but right around that time, because that's when they start looking to award students for the fall semester, okay? And they want to like notify you as early as May. Cool. Like I said before, there are hundreds and hundreds of scholarship search engines out there. These are just some of the best that Carla and I kind of put together. A local one, MEC, Metropolitan Education Commission, they have, oh my gosh, tons of local scholarships linked on their website. So I know we're going to send this out to you, but if you want to take a quick snapshot of that, I would be jumping on that website very soon. We also put the College Board. Many of you might know the College Board, right? They do like AP, PSAT, CLEP exams for college students. So the College Board is a well-known name. College Greenlight is also one of those cool websites that we, always direct students to. But again, you can go out looking for your own places to research scholarships, and literally you can Google like scholarships for nurses, and the only thing we'll tell you is just be careful. Places like Scholarship Universe, those scholarships have all been vetted by that company, right? So that they kind of pull out all those scams and anything that's like, trying that looks fraudulent, etc. If you go out on your own to try and find scholarships, you might run across a few of those that are, that would say like, hey, put in your social security number. Be careful, don't do that. Never pay for an application. And the rule of thumb is always, if it seems too good to be true, right? So be careful of those things. But we do encourage you to go out and look for private scholarships on the web.
Yeah. Okay, so there are other special financial aid programs, and there's more than just these two that are listed, but I didn't want to go into ones that, you wouldn't be able to apply for at this time. So if you, run across some information or want more information about any other types of financial aid programs that are out there, then please, let us know and we can help you out with that. And we already let Jeanette talk about JobPath. In case you weren't here at the beginning, we will provide a recording of this so that you can see it. But also JobPath is a local organization that helps with paying for your expenses while you're in nursing school. And they let us know that it's not just like your tuition and fees and your books, which they can help you with, but also like even paying for gas for your car, repairing your car, paying for childcare, all of these different things. So that's a really good resource in our community for people who qualify for it. And if you do, I encourage you to apply, just in case, and see if you can qualify for it and get those extra resources to help you pay for things while you're in school. But there is a program called AmeriCorps that students can participate in, and you can receive a stipend. There's lots of different levels of being involved in AmeriCorps, and you do work, right? It's called kind of like a volunteer position. So you're not getting, because you're not getting like a regular paycheck or anything for the work that you do, but you do get a stipend depending on the type of position you have and which program you're in, is how much you would actually get. And there's also an educational award that can go along with your AmeriCorps service. Okay, and so it's kind of like the Peace Corps, but the Peace Corps, you know, you have to already have a bachelor's degree and you're going out into the world to go and do some service outside of the United States. Whereas with AmeriCorps, you're staying here in the United States doing some type of service, and you can do it right here in our community. There are AmeriCorps service members all over Tucson. I've, you know, worked with them and run across them in so many different parts of our community. And my own daughter, actually, she's a senior at the U of A, and she is an AmeriCorps member, and she does tutoring after school for elementary and middle school students for math. And so that's the way that she is funding her education and having some pocket money while she's in college. So yeah, so that is an option for you as well if, you know, you are looking to make a little bit of extra cash or have another type of a way to pay for school, or, you know, get an education award to help you for next year. And then we have private student loans. So we've talked about federal student aid, right, where you can get your grants, you can get your work study, you can get the federal student loans, right? Then we've talked about scholarships. We've talked about other federal programs that help you pay for school. We've talked about other financial aid and grant programs, okay? And final piece that is an option for you are the private student loans. And so these private student loans come from private organizations such as banks, credit unions, state-based or state-affiliated organizations. They have terms and conditions that are set by the lender. So the federal government does not have any say besides, you know, any type of federal regulations that go into general lending practices. They don't have any say or jurisdiction over the loan, and the money is coming from the bank and not from the federal government, okay? They are more expensive than federal student loans, and a good link, you know, a resource there I found is NerdWallet, where you can go and compare different types of student, private student loans. This is really your last resort. If you really do need more money to help you pay for college, this is an option, right? But this does not have usually the same types of allowances that the federal student loan program, such as, you know, where you don't have to pay interest while you're in school, and you don't have to pay on your student loans while you're in school, okay? So with the private student loans, usually as soon as you get that loan, you're paying them back, okay? So it's, you know, it's something that you do need to be very careful about, and only use as a last resort if you absolutely need it, but that it is there, okay? And so if you did need help looking through that information in order to see if that's something that you could qualify for or use for funding college, then I'd be happy to help you look at that stuff. But we do want you to make sure that you only take out money, you only borrow money that you absolutely need, okay? Because that's why one of the, you know, there's so many people who are having student loan debt at this time. Okay, so we've gone over all of that, but so now you know how you can get money from so many different resources, but how does paying for college with that financial aid actually work, okay? So for this presentation, we're gonna use the federal Pell Grant as an example because it is the most common type of financial aid that students use to help them pay for college. And we're going to use that maximum amount of $6,345 that you can get for this 2020-2021 school year. And usually the way that it works is that it is split up between the fall semester and the spring semester. And so then for the fall semester, you would have gotten up to $3,173. And for the spring semester, you would get up to $3,172. Okay. And that's for a full-time student who has 12 credits or more for each of those semesters. You can, if like say you didn't take any classes last semester and now you're taking classes in the spring and then you need to take classes in the summer, you can use some of the Pell Grant funds that you didn't use for this school year for the summer. Okay. So, but generally this is how it's split up between the two semesters, like in half. Okay. So this is an example of first semester costs. We're going to use block 1 as an example without any of the support courses. A lot of students take their support courses before they get into the nursing program. So I just use the nursing block 1 courses. And this is how much they cost, because Nursing 104 is 8 credits. Then it's $1,292 for your tuition. And then the drug calculations is 1 credit and pharmacology is 3 credits. So those have, that we charge at Pima per credit, I believe. But then you have your student services fee, your technology fee, your semester processing fees, and your nursing course fees. Okay, because we have a differential for the nursing program on your tuition. Okay, so that gives you your full cost for this semester, $2,370.30 for block 1 classes only. And then your textbooks, you buy them all in that first block for the whole program usually. So then it's $1,838.75 for your books. So what happens after you register for your classes? Okay. So this all of this tuition stuff doesn't happen until you actually register for your classes, which the nursing program registers you for your nursing classes. So you don't physically go in there to register for your nursing courses. But once you're registered for your nursing courses, there's a 4-day tuition hold that goes onto your account once your FAFSA is received, so that you can register for your classes. Okay, that hold is extended as long as you're completing all of your steps. Okay, and in that checklist that we showed you on your My Pima, your hold stays. That whereas they're not expecting you to pay for those classes because they know that you qualify for financial aid and that eventually that financial aid money is going to come in and pay for your classes, for your tuition and your fees. Okay. And so as long as you keep doing all of those things on your checklist, then you're not going to be expected to pay that tuition because they know that you're going to get the federal financial aid to help you pay for it. If you stop working on things for 10 to 14 days, then the hold will expire and they might drop you from the courses. But in nursing, that doesn't usually happen because we're the, not me, not Todd, but the nursing program are the ones who control like the registration for the courses and all of that stuff. But it could happen with some of your other courses if you're taking other courses besides the nursing courses, okay? That you could get dropped for not working on your financial aid stuff, for not, making payments if you need to or anything like that. And so the recommendation is if you do get a bill that says, hey, we need something to show that you're going to do this, then you can do that payment plan and make payments until your financial aid is applied to your account. but that's usually only has to be done if you didn't meet those deadlines for all of the documentation that they're asking you to complete and provide. Okay, so that's why you need to be on top of it all the time. But if you get an email from financial aid or from the bursar's office, you know, or even a physical bill in the mail or something like that, then just call to find out what do you need to do, and you know, and then they will give you exactly the steps that you need to take. Okay, so your financial aid is applied to your expenses in this way. Okay, so you'll see this on your account. I took this directly from there. I used an example, like I looked at my son's account and then I said, okay, this is how they apply the, you know, the different things, okay, to make this sample. Okay, so this is the charge over here where they're charging for your tuition, your fees, okay, and there's the cost of the tuition and everything. Well, then if you have that full federal Pell Grant, it's $3,173 for that first semester, but your tuition and fees is only $2,370.30. So then you have a refund of $802.70. Okay. So then they would actually either send you that money in a check if you haven't arranged for direct deposit. But if you arrange for direct deposit, it would go directly into the account that you provide. And then you could use that to pay for your books and for other things. But as we found out when we looked at the cost, the books cost more than this $802. So where else are you going to get that money to pay for your books and other expenses? Okay, so that's kind of the thing then you need to figure out. If you have your tuition and fees paid for, but then there are other things that you need to pay for, how are you going to pay for those? So of course, you can use the money that's refunded to you or given to you directly by scholarships, grants, or loan organizations or companies to pay for your expenses. The books, the supplies, the transportation, your housing, your food are not paid directly to or by the college or out of your financial aid funds. So obviously you need to either use the refund or use money coming from work or your scholarships or other ways that you're getting funding to help you pay for things. Any money given directly to you or refunded to you by the college from financial aid can be used toward your expenses unless it's specified by the organization giving you the money. Okay, so the federal student aid, the Pell Grant, the work study, the federal student loans, those you can use for any of your expenses while you're in college. Okay, but if you get a scholarship from an organization that says that it can only be used for your books or it can only be used for tuition and fees, then that money is going to go towards that first. So that's why it's good to get the scholarships, because say you get a scholarship that's only for tuition and fees, that will get taken out for your tuition. That will be used for your tuition and fees first. Then your federal Pell Grant would be used. And then if you had the leftover, then you would get that. Okay. And then you would be able to use that to pay for your gas, to pay your rent, to pay your books, to pay whatever else that you need to pay. Okay. So that's why it's important to apply for everything that you're eligible for. And then what about the rest of your expenses? So like I said, your federal student aid, your scholarships, other grants and financial aid programs like JobPath said that they would help you pay for gas, they would help you pay your childcare, you know, other types of expenses. Of course, you can pay yourself, you know, with your own money that you work for, or if you have parents or other people that are helping you pay for things. And then the last resort of the private loans. Okay,
Hey,
Todd.
this is me. I get
This
to
is
talk
you.
about how do you keep your financial aid.
Yes.
Okay. I honestly hope none of you on the call are ever in this situation, because it's not good, and it's never good. We talk about retaining your financial aid as maintaining satisfactory academic progress. At the college, you'll hear it referred to as SAP. Okay, satisfactory academic progress. In order to maintain that progress, students must have a 2.0 or above GPA. And just something that you might be interested in is you can't graduate with less than a 2.0 GPA. So I think that's totally reasonable of the college. The next measure that they look at is that they want to make sure that students are completing 67% or higher of the courses that they begin. Okay. Also, I don't think that's very harsh at all. I think that's quite reasonable. Think about when a student withdraws from classes or fails classes. That's how you would have a reduced completion rate. Okay. And then the last thing that the college looks at for students to qualify for financial aid is making sure that they maintain 150% maximum time frames. You have to stay within 150% of completing your degree requirements. That's quite simple. I think we have a slide that goes into this in a little bit more detail in a video. But let me just explain this real quick. For a 2-year degree, that's 3 years maximum time frame. For a 4-year degree, it would be 6 years. Okay, so take the time of your degree and look at 150% of what that would be. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so with these examples on the next few slides, we've totally oversimplified this, and I think that's a good thing for our purposes here today. If you look at the example for this student's first semester, okay, check it out. They got C's in the classes that they passed, and then they failed, Math 142 and Bio 201 IN. Well, you all know that's a silly example because you're never getting into the nursing program with grades like this. But here's the deal. If you look at that one semester, this student can go on to financial aid warning literally within that first term. If you do the math here, the number of points they received for the grades that they received, right? So with an A being 4 points, a B being 3, and so on, this student earned 6 points, and then we divide by the number of courses that they took, and their GPA is a 1.2, so well below 2.0. Their completion rate is actually at a 60% after this first semester as well, because they completed 60% of the classes that they started. So this student would definitely go on to financial aid warning for their second term. Next slide, Carla, and we'll show them how this works. After that, that first semester, let me see here real quick. Is that? That's really weird. The slide that I have has the semester 2 listed there. Let's not worry about that right now.
Okay.
But the deal is the student.
Maybe I have to click on it again. There you go.
Warning for semester 2, and they would have to get their GPA above a 2.0 and their completion rate above 67% in one semester. So if you ever find yourself in this situation, you definitely want to talk with financial aid and/or your counselor or advisor so that we can tell you whether that's even possible, because sometimes it is impossible in your warning term. Keep in mind, on a warning term, a student does still receive financial aid. If by the third semester, that student has, by the end of the second semester, if that student has not gotten above the 2.0 and the 67% completion, they would not receive financial aid and would be suspended from it during their third term. Again, I hope this doesn't affect any of you. We just, wanted to make sure that you're aware of this. Clearly, if you're in the nursing program, none of this could happen, or you wouldn't be able to continue in the nursing program either, right? So, just so that you see that. In this example, thank you, Carla. I don't know what was going on there with the slides, but in this scenario, this student, let me see here real quick. Is there a next slide?
The next one is the maximum time frame.
Oh yeah.
So it just goes into that after the second semester, then you're in suspension.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, the student did not meet the 2.0 and 67% within their second term, so they would go on to suspension. After a student is on suspension, well, we'll get into that in a sec. Carla, do you want to play the video on time frame? Yeah.
Maximum time frame. Maximum time frame is sometimes referred to as maximum time length, unit limit, excessive hours, or maximum credits allowed. As you work on your degree, the Financial Aid Office keeps track of how long it takes you to complete your program. You need to complete your program in a certain amount of time and credits to stay in good financial aid standing. We already know students can't just take every class at the school and keep getting financial aid. So where's the cutoff? Overall, the rule is that you have 150% of the published program length to finish your degree. It sounds a bit complicated, but it's not. 150% of the published length means you have 1.5 times as long as it should take, because sometimes there are bumps along the way. If you think in terms of credits, a 60 credit program would get capped at 60 multiplied by 150%, or 90 total attempted credits. If you hit 150% of your program, you will not be eligible to receive financial aid. The Financial Aid Office monitors your progress throughout your time in college. If it looks like you cannot complete your program within the 150% allowed time length, you may lose your eligibility.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I'll go back to
cool.
the slides.
The next slide should actually get us right back to if you're on financial aid suspension, how do you gain that back? And I covered this in detail. You need to, you can pay out of pocket, and you need to meet the 2.0, meet or exceed the 2.0, or the 67% completion. Okay, so that's how you get yourself back into good standing. There is one other option. The next option is doing what we call a SAP appeal, and a financial aid SAP appeal can help you regain your financial aid, even if you have not met the 2.0, 67%, or the 67% completion. So let's go to this next slide. So this one really just talks about if you're going to pay out of pocket for these courses. This student, I think this is the same student, who did not regain their eligibility in the second term. They, however, paid cash for their classes, and look at those grades, all B's for semester 3. In semester 3, if you do the math and look at this, their GPA will meet, with all 3 of those terms, a 2.5 GPA, and they will be at 76% completion following that term, which means in the next term, they will again qualify for financial aid. So pretty simple. You can pay out of pocket and do that. Now, if that's not an option, we do encourage students to complete what we call a SAP appeal. You've got to keep in mind that you have to meet certain circumstances like those listed below, like an illness or major injury, death of an immediate family member, divorce, perhaps a deployment, or some sort of unusual event or disruptive event. Generally, the Financial Aid Office does not approve SAP appeals for things like I was young and unfocused, etc. Okay, so often I talk with students that have some grades that are haunting them from even like 5 or 10 years ago. Financial aid takes into account every semester that you've ever attended at the college. So just kind of keep that in mind. We're happy to talk you through that should you need to. So great. Let's go on, Carla.
Oops.
Oh,
Sorry, went to the wrong one.
More video.
There we go.
Just about done.
One more video.
How do I know if I am eligible to file an appeal? If you're notified that you are no longer eligible to receive financial aid due to your satisfactory academic progress, SAP status, you may be eligible to file an appeal if one of the following circumstances applies to you. An injury or serious illness of you or a family member, loss of employment, either you or a family member, loss or change of housing, qualifying life event, divorce, birth, or death of family member, natural disaster, military duty, other unexpected circumstances beyond your control. You will need to provide supporting documentation to verify your circumstances.
And there are other videos that are available about all of these financial aid issues and like the documentation and how to appeal on the website. And I have the link there also.
Very cool. So we have made it to the end of our Boy, was that long or was it just me?
It's a lot of information.
Yes. So I guess at this point we'll open it up to questions that any of you have. You can unmute yourselves. We're such a small group. Feel free and do that. You can also toss them in the chat. I know. Brandon's at work, so if you've got questions, Brandon, no problem. You can throw them in the chat. Anything else, Carla?
No, I'll just, if you have any questions, let us know. We're happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll give you like the contact information for financial aid and then our contact information in case you have some questions after that come up. So if you think of anything before we say goodbye, let us know. We'll be happy. And you might be typing, I don't know, and so if something pops up, then we'll definitely answer your question. But here is contact information for the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships. They are the official people that you can get information from about financial aid. Yes, when I send the recording, I will include the slides. Also, since I invited you to this meeting, then it should pop up the ability to look at the recording in your calendar. Okay, so it should be attached to your calendar invitation that's on your Google Calendar. So, but yes, I will send out the slides also. And so there's their phone number for the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships. Their hours, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4:30, Friday from 10 to 4:30. And of course, because of the pandemic, things are different than usual. So please be patient. But you can also contact them by email. You can send general questions to the FA help, and then the appropriate person will answer you. If you have specific questions about loans, you can do that to loanhelp@pima.edu, and then specific questions about scholarships, then you can go to scholarships@pima.edu to send an email, okay? And so all of this will be available to you when you receive the slides. And then these are your student support services within the Department of Nursing. So I'm doing it in alpha order, so that's why I'm first on the list, because I have the students from A through G, and my phone number is there, my email address is there. I use Google Voice for my phone because I don't have a office phone at the campus yet, because I just started in June. But you can text me or call me on that phone number. And as long as I'm available at that time, I'll be happy to answer you at that time. Dee Dee Denigen is the program advisor for students whose last names begin with H through M. And there's her phone number and email address. And then Sylvia Lustanao Romero works with students whose last names begin with N through R. And then her email address. And then Todd, you work with students whose last names begin with S through Z, and there's your contact information. And then Todd, do you want to explain the advising line when they call, just so that if they do need help and they go to the advising line, what should they expect?
Oh yeah, are you talking about the student callback service?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so actually 3 of us. Carla does not currently work the student callback service. Best way to reach any of us, though, I would say, is via email. That way, I get to the students who come to me first. During the pandemic, we actually took our line management system, which we actually used to use at the campus, right? When you showed up, you'd go to the welcome desk and you'd sign in, you'd wait for someone to call you. We're actually using that same system called QList, which allows you to call in, and you just hang out and you get a text message saying someone's about to call you. So if you need something quickly, as far as academics, not financial aid, obviously, but you need to reach someone quickly that might have an answer for you, it will be one of your nursing advisors on that service. I don't know if you want to go out to the website and show them how to access that. That might be smart if they don't know how to do that.
Okay.
Well, let us show you this real quick, guys. And I can put all of the nursing contact in the chat as well. And I don't see any other questions in the chat. Feel free, guys, to some time.
So if you go to, I just went to the Pima website, and then I went to student resources and then academic advising. And it took me to this page. And there's a link in the slides, but it took me to this page, and you go down here to advising callback, and you click sign in online, and then it takes you here, and you fill out the information, and then it will put you in the queue for them to give you a call back.
Right, and generally, guys, unless it's like the week before classes start, we're calling students back within like 5 minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So for a quick question, this is a great way, to get that answer quickly. I would imagine, at least I can only speak for myself, but it's usually 24 hours or so for me to return an email. I get lots of them.
Okay, well, that is our presentation. If you have any questions, let us know. We hope you have a great day, and we're happy to help you with anything. So please reach out to us if you need help with anything, with making sure that you're successful in your education.
Thanks so much for being with us, guys. Have a great day.
You're welcome, Brendan. I'm going to stop recording.
Okay.